Hey everybody, Will here. I want to talk to you briefly about and give you an introduction to one of our school finance summer research projects. This one involving the new average daily membership student count system that will be implemented under Senate Bill 213. So currently in the state we have a pretty terrible, antiquated, burdensome student count that revolves around attendance in schools and districts on one day of the year, October 1st. And there are all sorts of problems with the system, but you can probably guess a few of them. In schools and districts around the state on October 1st, there's a pizza party and an iPad giveaway and an ice cream social in every classroom so that schools and districts can get as many butts in seats on October 1st so that they can get that, roughly $6,000 a kid that will bring the school and district. But there is no incentive to then keep students after that date, especially if they're very difficult to serve. And we have great schools and districts here, and a lot of times they keep those students, but there's nothing financially speaking that requires them to do so or even incentivizes them to do so. And then, especially around start of the new semester in January, there's nothing that incentivizes a district to take on a student that is very difficult to serve, or even any student at all, because you won't get funding for that kid because they weren't in attendance in your school or district on October 1st. And it's a bit more nuanced than that, but that's essentially what we're doing. Is we're really only caring about whether or not the kid is in a classroom on October 1st. And what that means is because that's such a high value day, districts and schools have whole departments that are devoted to the October 1 count, and CD audits it, our department audits it very vigorously. And districts sometimes will have 2 or 3 weeks where they have CD auditors at their school who are going through name by name the 70,000 kids in their district to see if they really have all the hours they needed to be counted as full-time on October 1st. So what Senate Bill 213 does is it transitions us away from that antiquated system of counting attendance one day of the year to a modernized system of average daily membership that's used in a lot of other states in the country. And what that system will do is, instead of basing everything on attendance on a single day, it'll base funding on membership on every day of the year. And what we think this does is, you'd be right in saying that it seems a bit odd to move away from attendance, but a membership-based count is much easier to administer, and we think the incentives that are in place for attendance would still kind of motivate schools and districts to ask kids to come to school if we believe and if research shows that attendance has an impact on student learning outcomes, which it probably does, but maybe doesn't as much as an October 1 count would suggest. So students will be worth whatever fraction of that is, whatever fraction of that $6,000 is every day of the year, rather than being worth $6,000 on one day of the year. One sort of policy and political decision we made in the SB 213 process is that we would leave one of the most difficult pieces of implementing an average daily membership system to the state board rule process. And that aspect is developing the definition of membership for an average daily membership system. And the reason we did that is because we didn't think a bright line rule and statute was the right way to go. We thought a collaborative process outside of the legislature in which the department worked with schools and districts to decide on what that definition would be would probably be the best way to go, rather than us deciding in a smoky room with a bunch of Cokes. So your mission this summer, if you choose to accept it, is to advise us in how we should advise the state board and districts in developing that definition of average daily membership. And there are some parameters you should be thinking about. We obviously want that definition to be very clear, but very easy to administer so that districts aren't burdened with the audit process that currently consumes so much time and money that could otherwise be devoted to teaching kids how to read, which is probably more important than counting them. We also want the definition to interface with a new technology system that'll be coming online that tries to count students in more real time, but really tries to make it such that the department can do a lot of the legwork in polling data potentially from districts, rather than districts having to push up attendance data like they do right now. And finally, the definition should be something that doesn't require schools and districts to double the size of their current departments that are devoted to student count, which they would have to do if all we were doing was repeating that October 1 process a bunch of times throughout the year. We'd like to reduce the amount of work that goes into it, and we need a definition of membership that is cohesive with that goal. We also have a lot of different types of students in the state, as you could imagine. So we have traditional students, but we also have students that are concurrently enrolled or that are homeschooled or that are at risk for funding purposes or that are English language learners. And we'll need different definitions of membership for all those different things. Student count is more exciting than it seems, I can promise you that. It is very challenging and ultimately is very important because it is the starting point of a district and schools funding and everything else in school finance that comes after that. So I hope one of you or a couple of you will take on this very important task and will help us. We could really use some help in making sure that this average daily membership system helps create the 21st century school finance and generally education model that we're trying to create in the state. Thanks, and look forward to working with you.